And it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Ariel Cerenzie. She is a Texas native and received her Bachelor of Science degree from Texas A&M University. She then earned her Doctor of Optometry degree from the University of Houston College of Optometry. She did her residency at the University of Missouri in St. Louis, and she gained extensive experience in diagnosing and managing complex anterior segment diseases. She's now practicing in North Carolina, Charlotte, and has helped grow a myopia management specialty within the practice. I think that is so fantastic. And over the course of 18 months, she has helped increase the practice's myopia management patient base by over 300%. And on top of all of her amazing accomplishments, she just had a baby a little bit over a month ago. So she is a truly amazing woman to be able to present this incredible information to us on a Sunday and have a little baby in the background. So Dr. Cerenzie, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. Super excited to present on this topic on integrating myopia management into your practice with Stephanie. So as Stephanie mentioned, I am in Charlotte, North Carolina, and since I can't be with you guys in person to show you 1,000 pictures of my little baby, I just will suffice with one here. So if I just start not making any sense, it's because I'm sleep deprived. We'll just blame it on that. So when I joined the practice in Charlotte, it's a full scope practice, and they were doing some myopia management. But it wasn't a huge focus of the practice. And after finishing my contact lens residency, it was really important to me to have that as, a large focus of my day. So in building up this specialty of myopia management into the practice, I learned a lot of things to do, things not to do. Here are some of my financial disclosures. With Paragon Vision Sciences, I had another perspective other than building our own myopia management practice, in that I helped other vision source doctors that were integrating CRT into their practice to kind of troubleshoot any issues that they had. So on a monthly basis, I would present practice management presentations and then get to talk to some of the doctors about some of the challenges they may be having. And so for this presentation, we're going to focus on really the three main things that might present some difficulties in integrating myopia management into clinical practice. And here are some of Dr. Wu's financial disclosures. I wish mine looked like that. So here is kind of a roadmap of where we will go with this presentation. The first part, we will focus on consultation and communication tips. So, you've seen patients in the past that are myopic, and before we had myopia management options, we would just say, your vision worsened. Good news is we have this great updated prescription. We're going to get you seeing better and send you on your way. So it really never has been presented as an issue. So you can imagine that when you talk to patients or parents about myopia management, they're kind of confused as, why is this an issue? It hasn't been an issue before. So we'll talk about some tips that you can integrate on how to, effectively and efficiently as well get your point across that myopia management is super important for their child. Another thing that can present some difficulty is scheduling this into your already existing schedule without causing some chaos. Especially with things like orthokeratology, it might take a little bit extra time, especially in the beginning, to fit these lenses. And on that same note, it's important to train the team so they know how to not only schedule these patients, but also how to perform testing and to talk to patients about myopia management. And then lastly, this is really a big one, is billing for myopia management. Of course, I can't talk specific numbers in this presentation, but we'll go through ways that you can look at your office finances and determine what you should bill for your practice based off of your numbers. So we'll go ahead and get started for the first part on how to have an efficient and effective consultation. So from the start, you're going to identify candidates during your comprehensive exam. And then you want to prescribe myopia management. You don't necessarily want to recommend it. Dr. Sheila Morrison had a really great article and review of myopia management about the importance of verbiage of prescribing myopia management, because when you recommend it, it really kind of, diminishes its value. You want to provide visuals to the parent so they can understand what myopia is, first of all, and also how some of the treatment options can work. And then try not to do everything all at once during the comprehensive exam. Schedule a consultation. So let's go into that in a little bit more detail. For the communication during the exam, I recommend developing a script, and you don't have to, robotically go one by one through each of the bullet points on what you're going to say, but just have a general idea of, what you're going to say, how you're going to say it, verbiage you're going to use. Because if you're like me, I like to ramble, and it can take up a lot of time, and you might not get your point across to the parent. So we'll go over a script that I have developed for our office, and then you can take that and customize it for your office and your relationship with these patients. Next is focusing on emotion versus scare tactics. You'll find probably in your patient demographic, this is how it is for ours, is that when you talk about the dangers of myopia, which we care about as practitioners, it doesn't really hit home to parents quite as much as it does for us. But what does is the emotional side of things, because these are their children. When you talk about the quality of life, their functional vision, maybe if their prescription gets so high, they might not be able to have certain opportunities for certain positions, like if they want to be a pilot, for example. And it's also really important to show them how genuinely concerned you are. I think that this is so important. I've had so many parents tell me, I really don't understand this completely, but it's clear to me that you're concerned, and therefore I'm concerned. Let me learn more about this. Another thing, which we'll go over in a little bit, is you can show parents what their child's vision looks like, because they don't really understand that either. It's not like with braces where, you can clearly see that a child has an overbite or underbite, or their teeth are crooked. They have no idea what their child's world looks like to them. Give examples that resonate with parents. A lot of parents are coming in now and they're concerned about all of this screen time that their children are doing. And then provide more information and schedule a consultation where you can go into more detail. So here's an example of a script that I use more or less. I'll say, John's vision has worsened this year, and this progression really does concern me. And then, customize it to the parent. If you know that they wear glasses, or if they don't, you say, I know that you wear glasses or don't. Let me demonstrate these vision changes to you. And then step outside of the exam room, because when you're inside the exam room, everything is really close to them, and it doesn't really show them the significance of the myopia as it would at a distance target, such as stepping out in the parking lot. This is our parking lot. And so I bring with me a set of lenses, and I'll show them what that child's vision was like last year. Last year they were a -1/4. So I'll show this to them. Last year, this is what their world looked like. This year, this is how their vision has worsened over just a course of 1 year, and I'll show that to them. And then I'll say, if this continues, if we don't do anything about it other than prescribing just regular glasses and regular contact lenses, this is what their vision will look like 1 year from now. If you want to make a huge impact, you could even show 2 or 3 years from now without therapy. And before I can ever get into any of the other part of my script, I usually have parents just they're kind of a little bit taken aback, like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. Well, what can we do? And then at that point, you're more of a team member with them, as opposed to saying, now this is what we need to do. Stephanie, do you do something similar at your office as well?
Yeah, so I love this example because I think it's really important to get the parents very involved from the very beginning. And what I used to do was I would show them the research and I would show them how their child would be more at risk for certain eye diseases when they got older. And I thought that would be the thing that locked them in. And I was really surprised that so many parents, they just didn't seem to take action. They didn't want to do anything to manage their child's myopia. But when we do something like this, where we can actually show the parents exactly what their child is seeing, like you said, Dr. Cerenzie, it just really dials that in and gets the parents to understand what their child is experiencing, because a lot of times they really have no idea, especially if they have no correction themselves. This is really, really eye-opening for them.
For sure. So then we go back to the exam room, and I'll continue my script and say, this is called progressive myopia. And in children, progressive myopia can cause progressive functional vision loss when they are uncorrected, which is a concern because we cannot reverse this. What's done is done. And studies show us also that these levels of myopias can be, increased levels of myopia are associated with decreases in the quality of life and the potential for eye diseases later in life. And then you ask them, well, what is their screen time like? And this is the example that really resonates with parents because they're seeing really probably for the first time how much screen time that these children are having with how much we've been spending time at home during the quarantine during this last year. Gosh, almost 2 years. It's just crazy. And that really hits home for a lot of parents. And I know that according to research, it's not just screen time that's associated with increased levels of myopia, but you can guarantee that if they're doing a lot of screen time, they're not spending time outdoors. They're spending a lot of time indoors with a lot of near stimulus. And so then you tell them the good news. The good news is that we can do something about it. I would like to send you some more information, and then let's continue this conversation in 2 to 3 days with what we do at our office is a telehealth visit. That way we can discuss further after you've had some time to review this information. What I do at our office, and you can certainly customize it to your practice, a lot of industry leaders in myopia management treatment options have great resources with beautiful images that you can give the patients before they leave. Because of COVID, I tried to minimize how many papers I was exchanging with patients. So I would email them a digital copy of some of these resources. And then I would summarize in an email what we discussed that day. And I would highlight the options that I thought would be best for them. And that way they have some time to review some of the options. They also could be directed to some of these easy to understand websites on the right. Nick Despicidis, I don't know how to say his last name, but he's amazing. He's an amazing speaker. Did a TED talk on myopia, which is a great thing for them to listen to. And then another thing for them to read about is, why have I never heard about this before? And you can tell them, when they ask you some of those difficult questions, like, why have I never heard about this before? Then kind of like Dr. Bullimore said, you let them know research is always evolving and changing. And we used to not have these options, but great for you, now we do. And so then I have a call to action. When they leave that comprehensive exam, I make sure that before they leave, they have a visit scheduled, a follow-up visit, whether that be a telehealth visit or a fitting visit if they're already ready to commit at that time. So for the telehealth visit, there's a service called Doxy that is HIPAA compliant. That is great. It's free. And you can just send them your unique URL and they'll be in this little patient queue in the top left corner. You just simply click on it and you have a quick, consultation with them after they've had a chance to review all of this information. We'll talk a little bit about in billing, how you really have to kind of think about how many visits you're going to have with this patient for what your total global fee may be. You could do some of these consultations during your lunch hour, so it's not in a revenue generating spot, which is what I do. So that could be something that you could consider. So let's get into part 2, training your staff, creating a schedule template, and then building your myopia management patient base. I think that we all have gone to, academy or, some of these meetings where you just get so amped up and you come back to your office and you're ready to make all of these changes and your staff is just like, oh, great, here they come. They're just ready to rock our world, make us do more work. Here we go. And, no different with myopia management, where it can definitely be a disruptor to your practice. For your team, if you think about it from their perspective, myopia management means they're doing more specialty testing. And not only that, they're trying to do a topography on a wiggly child. They're having to talk about services that are more expensive than what they've had to discuss before, which can be intimidating. They're having to do insertion and removal. And what's worse than doing insertion and removal training on a 50-year-old man is doing it on a child. And that's something that they're probably not going to look forward to. There's potential for scheduling changes. They have to know what templates to put what slots to put these children in. And lastly, they're going to be probably on the phone a lot more with these parents. Typically parents, especially those that already know about myopia management, tend to be pretty type A, which means lots of questions for your team members. So it's really important for your team to understand the why of myopia management and help them feel they're doing something that is such a unique opportunity that we have in our profession. And that is preserving, as well as we possibly can anyways, the ocular health of these individuals. I think your team has probably all seen a retinal detachment that somebody has lost vision from, glaucoma where somebody has gone virtually blind in one eye. And to let them know that they could have the opportunity to prevent that from happening to this child, I think is very impactful. And also do the same thing that you do with your patients, where you show what vision changes would look like. Kind of like in Dr. Lipson's example, where this patient could be a -7, show them what a +7 looks like to the world, and show them, instead we can keep this child at a -375 and show what that looks like. And just make them feel like the heroes that they will be, because they will be so important for the success of your myopia management practice, because they'll be spending way more time with these patients than you will. So Stephanie, tell us a little bit about how your staff, communicates and works with some of the myopia management patients that you have at your practice.
Well, I think you've made such a great point that the staff is such an integral role in really any optometry clinic. So anytime you have a new product or a new service, it's really important to get the team trained on whatever that is. So you're completely right, Ariel. We get back from these meetings and we're like, all right, we're gonna do this. But then it's like, oh, wait, hold on. We've got to get the staff educated and trained, and we've got to come up with some sort of system. Otherwise, this is never going to work. I've made that mistake a million times. What I have found is effective is whenever we want to incorporate either a new product or a new service or both, we will schedule a meeting with the staff. Let's say lunchtime on a Friday, or maybe it's a Friday morning before we see patients. We block out an hour and we've got like a whole presentation or in conversation we're going to have with the staff. And so for myopia management in particular, we had a meeting with the staff and we said, okay, this is a new service that we're going to offer. This is why that we're offering this. This is why the patients are going to be helped. And this is kind of what the typical patient evaluation and the flow is going to be like from beginning to end. And then we just answer a bunch of questions. And then at least the staff are all on the same page. So once we have everybody on the same page and everybody knows what's going on, then we can really start to fine tune things and dial things in so that we have a very, very good, successful practice.
Yes, and that's what we do as well. Is we'll do, lunch and learns, a series of lunch and learns, and you typically do them on your own, or do you bring industry leaders in?
So in my other practice, it was a very rural location. So there were basically no reps that really ever came to visit us. So we would basically do things on our own or have them kind of tune in virtually. But if there's any way to have them in person, the staff really love that. Because first of all, it's someone new that they don't know. And it's not just their boring doctor just talking to them again. It's someone fun and interesting. So I would highly recommend getting somebody to come into the office, and because they are really true experts and they really want your practice to succeed with this.
Yeah, definitely. And they always have just the most beautiful presentations, and they're experts in whatever technology they offer. And so it's great for staff to hear that from them. And you can get creative with it. Maybe you can make some of your staff myopia management specialty, experts. And maybe you have like a certain amount of hours they have to attend for lunch and learns. Maybe they have to read so many articles, and then now they are a specialty technician. And really this helps them have some, a certain level of commitment to the specialty, as opposed to just being kind of your workhorse for it. Other resources that are available are the Brian Holden Vision Institute. They have courses for staff and for doctors as well. Dr. Bullimore has an amazing website, bullers2020.com, that has all of the relevant scientific information, literature on myopia management. And from time to time, I'll send some articles like from this to our team members and kind of quiz them on it a little bit later. Similarly, with review of myopia management, I love some of the articles that come out of there, and I'll send that to the staff from time to time as well. And Myopia Profile is also another great resource. And all of these resources are great for the team and also great for doctors to make sure that we stay on top of all of the new literature and science that's coming out about myopia management. So when we think about doing our schedule, we need to think about how long it takes to do the workup, exam time, and follow-up for these patients. When you're doing workup, we will be doing autorefraction, biometry if you have it, and definitely topography. Like Dr. Lipson said, if you're doing topography, it's so important that, or if you do orthokeratology, it's so important that you have a topographer. Next is, how long will this exam time take you? You probably should do a wet or cycloplegic refraction, at least at their baseline, so we know what their true level of myopia is. A good baseline slit lamp exam with sodium fluorescein staining. That way, if you see some staining at, say, an orthokeratology follow-up or a multifocal soft lens follow-up, you know whether or not that might be from the lens, as opposed to maybe they don't close their eyes all the way at night and their eyes are already a little bit dry. Also a good idea to have some baseline binocular testing. Some of these therapies can affect our accommodation as well as the phoria levels that we have. So the International Institute of Myopia has some recommendations on exactly what tests to do, but you could do like accommodative amplitudes, for example, testing their heterophoria. That way, say a patient has a pretty large exophoria, you could be able to watch them a little bit more carefully if they were doing, you know, a multifocal, for example, because it could make it a little bit worse. Next is, how long is it going to take to have some extra parent counseling during the exam? Patient counseling as well on how to take care of these lenses, and then insertion and removal training. This is what our schedule looks like at our office, and I really wanted to try to not disrupt the schedule or make minimal changes as much as possible. And before I made any changes, I really made sure to get buy-in from the staff too. That way they could at least be in support of how the schedule is going to look, and also because they know the schedule so much better than what I do. So we see patients every 25 minutes, and our 8 o'clock time slot is double booked. And at that 8 o'clock time slot, while the comprehensive exam is being worked up, I'll see a patient that doesn't require a workup, like a medical office visit or a contact lens follow-up visit. So that orange slot at 8 o'clock can either be a revenue generating spot in the cases of a medical office visit, or a non-revenue generating spot in the case of a contact lens follow-up. For the 11:55 time slot, this is also going to be a flex spot for us as well. This is where we have our dry eye consultations. And we have it that way just because the dry eye consultations take quite a bit of time to do their all of their scans and workup. So Stephanie, tell me a little bit about how you schedule these patients.
Well, I love this example, and I love that you're actually showing like a color-coded kind of schedule of what people can kind of mimic if they don't really know where to start. And one of the best pieces of advice that I remember getting was from Nick Despeditis, and he talked about how he plugged in his schedule, let's say on a Tuesday from 11:30 to noon, every Tuesday, that was specifically blocked off for an orthokeratology patient, either a consult or a new fitting or follow-up, whatever it was. And he said, it's great because once you have it blocked off, no other patients can go in there. And that really motivates you to get that slot filled, you know, especially if you own your own practice or your income is based off of money generated. You don't want that thing just sitting open. So I started doing that in my other practice, where I was seeing primary care and cataract post-ops and taking care of glaucoma patients, doing basically everything. And when I wanted to integrate specialty lenses into the mix, I specifically blocked out time where the only person that can go here is a specialty lens patient. So I think it's brilliant that you've got some slots that are dedicated to those patients specifically. Another thing that's great about doing it this way is that it keeps the staff really in tune with what's going on. They have so much stuff going on as it is. They're on the phone with patients all day, answering a million questions, managing your schedule. So it's really easy for them to forget, like, oh, shoot, I forgot that I can put an ortho-K consult or a myopia management consult on Dr. Cerenzie's schedule at this time. But the fact that you've got these kind of in your schedule already, the staff are really in tune with what's going on. I think this is wonderful. So I really highly recommend anybody that's wanting to get started on this, make sure that you are blocking out specific time slots. Otherwise, it can get easily overlooked.
And what would be your recommendation on, you know, how many time slots to, you know, block a week, and how far out? What did you do at your office when you first started?
Great question. So we started doing it, I think, once a week. So this was in the very beginning where we had absolutely zero specialty lens patients at all. And so we said, okay, Tuesdays from 11:30 to noon, that's only for a specialty lens, either a consult or a fitting, dispense, whatever it is. Then once that was consistently getting booked, then we moved it over and said, okay, now we're going to do it Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then it just kind of snowballed. And then so it became Tuesday mornings. Those are all specialty lens or myopia management patients. And then it became, okay, Tuesday, all day. That's what Dr. Wu does. All day Tuesdays is only specialty lens or myopia management patients. So you can start small and kind of then snowball your way into it. But Dr. Cerenzie, I'm curious to what you do. Is this something that you put in right away? Is it something that you kind of integrated over the past year or two?
Yeah, so I'm going to go to the next slide here. I went ahead and built it into our schedule already, but I do love the idea of having, a whole day dedicated to myopia management or specialty lenses, and I'll probably consider doing that in the future. But what we did initially was we took a revenue generating spot, like the comprehensive exam spots at 8 and noon. And we chose those spots so we would have a little bit of extra time if things went south, given that it's the first and then the last comprehensive exam slot of the day. Because in those initial therapy visits, you do quite a bit. You're going to be doing the visual acuities, biometry measurements, topography if you're doing orthokeratology, refractions, you're doing your slit exam, binocular testing, and then you're doing your wet refraction at the end of it. But for your follow-ups, you can change it up however it fits for your schedule, or block off some time in the mornings as well. So for the Ortho-K follow-up, we have these two spots dedicated for it, just because the first day or the first week exam time does take a little bit more time, because you're doing a lot of tests with lenses and then tests without lenses. So you're doing your slit lamp with and without lenses, you're doing refraction with and without lenses, just making sure everything goes very smoothly. And it's really important, as Dr. Lipson said, to make sure that you go over history with the patient very thoroughly, that they're taking care of these lenses properly. You want to have them walk you through it, really, instead of asking them yes or no questions. Okay, what do you do if you're using Clear Care, for example? How do you store these lenses? What exactly do you do with that liquid that's in the container, et cetera? And then for your follow-ups after, you could put it in a non-revenue generating spot that is a little bit shorter of a time period that you'll be spending with that patient, because things are going to be a little bit quicker for your 3-month and 6-month Ortho-K visits. Multifocal visits and atropine, they tend to go a lot faster because they're a little bit more straightforward. So this is what we just do for our office. And it's, I think, kind of having an idea of what I do and what Stephanie did at her office can make it to where you can really customize it to where it'll fit best into your practice. And as Stephanie said, it's great to create a start date. This is the day that we're going to start to see myopia management patients. That way everybody's geared up and ready to go. So how do you build your schedule? One of the things that a lot of EMRs have is the ability to generate reports on your existing patients. So you can generate a report that you want to have patients ages 5 to 14, for example, that have a diagnosis code of myopia, bilateral myopia, and you want to make sure that you have their emails available, that really probably it'll be their parents' emails, and you can send an email blast to all of these patients, letting them know that you have this new technology available. Because a lot of your patients will come from in-house. And then you can start to have word of mouth referrals. When you start doing myopia management, you'll find that you'll have a lot of parents wanting to talk about what you're doing for their child that hasn't been done before. Especially orthokeratology tends to be a pretty great source of word of mouth referrals, because people are seeing this child without their glasses, and they've had glasses for years and wondering what the heck is going on. Why are they not having to wear glasses anymore? And parents really like to talk about this innovative, cool technology. There are forms of marketing that you can do, but it's really difficult to market a myopia management practice. So really having on your website key words and phrases. That way, if somebody already knows about myopia management, your website will come up. Just make sure that you have the good search engine optimization keywords on your page, and just a really thorough explanation of how you specialize in it, how you've done training, how you've gotten certain certificates in it, etc. So part 3, this is the really fun part, the billing side of things. A lot of doctors want to know, can I bill insurance for this, or should I do self-pay? There's really pros and cons to both. Pros is that really kind of the only pro, in my opinion, is that patients expect to be able to use their quote unquote insurance. And we know that vision plans really aren't insurance, they're more so discount plans. The cons are that you as the practice will have reduced reimbursements, also variable reimbursements depending on the plan. They're not going to pay you more for a specialty fit. And if you decide, well, this isn't really worth it when I'm getting reimbursed, then it's really difficult to switch to self-pay afterwards. The pros of self-pay is that you have more straightforward reimbursements, they're going to be higher, and then you're not having to have work on the back end of your staff having to do the extra billing and trying to get as much as you possibly can for the specialty service. The cons are it is a larger expense for patients, and you might get some pushback because of that. And then you might have some staff that's kind of, uneasy about talking about these numbers with parents. And so Stephanie's had a really unique opportunity or perspective to go from a practice that accepted insurance to a practice that's totally self-pay. So I'd love to hear, your experience with that unique transition.
Yeah, so the past 10 years, we've had traditional eye care and accepted basically every insurance known to man. So any medical insurance, any vision insurance, we took it all. And then when I opened up my specialty lens clinic in Las Vegas last year, I decided when I opened cold that I was not going to take insurance at all. And I think the pros and cons are completely accurate. A lot of that's a very common question that Taylor gets every day from patients. Do you take insurance? Why don't you take insurance? All these different things, but just kind of the pros and cons you have listed out. We felt like it was the best option for our practice and the services that we're providing and just the way that we're caring for patients now. So it's very, very different, night and day. And I will say that it would be very hard to go back to taking insurance now that I don't take insurance. But yeah, you have to be prepared. You probably do have to work a bit harder to recruit those patients. If you're in a practice now that takes insurance, I think the industry average, if you got rid of like all of your insurances, you only maintain like 10% or so of your patients. So you have to adjust accordingly. I'm in a uniquer situation where I started cold and I just didn't take insurance from the get-go. And so I'm not sure what the practice would be if I did take insurance, but I can tell you that the way that I'm able to practice and the freedom that I have and the type of high quality care we give to patients now has been very, very liberating and rewarding. And it's been wonderful. And I would just like to mention that anybody that's halfway tuned in right now, or if you're just on the phone, it's just sitting there right now, or you're doing a million other things, pay attention to the next few slides, because Dr. Cerenzie has really taken a ton of information and generated an amazing presentation on how to come up with fees, and just a lot of these questions are questions we get all the time on how do I structure a fee structure for myopia management. And she has spent a ton of time really highlighting some of the concepts here. So definitely tune in for the next few minutes if you're like halfway zoned out. This is something that people are always asking about, and I can't wait to see the next slides.
Thank you, Stephanie. All right. So for our practice, in the next few slides, we'll go over a couple of things. One is how, if you wanted to bill insurance, how you could do that. And then the next is how you could structure a global fee based off of your chair cost of your practice. I wanted to show what our practice does because it's really a fusion of those two things. So areas that have a black box over them is areas that is our usual and customary fees for what they're next to. So a comprehensive exam will have our usual and customary fee, and then we do allow them to use their insurance for that comprehensive visit. For the contact lens evaluation, we have our usual and customary fee for a specialty fit. So not the keratoconus specialty fits, but the highest level below that, like a multifocal fit, a custom RGP fit. And then we put next to it what their insurance contribution is. And then below that, contact lens materials, we have what the patient's cost is, and then what their insurance will contribute towards. What's unique about this, though, is that we have a medical management fee, which is really the bulk of the fee. It's by far the largest percentage of their total, and that cannot be discounted with insurance at all. So we tell them, your vision discount plan does not cover the medical management that's associated with this medical device that we're putting on your eye to provide the therapy to slow your myopia. So then, they have below that the savings with insurance, and that kind of gives them the illusion of a discount, which is nice. And then we just have them sign at the bottom that they accept these fees and that they'll come back for their annual visit. For atropine, we have just a flat fee. And the reason why we do this is because we want to make sure that they're coming back for these visits, as opposed to prescribing them some medical therapy and them just going on their way because they don't want to pay every time that they come in. So billing using insurance, you technically can bill some medical codes if they have some myopic sequelae that is presented in their fundus examination. So other specified retinal disorders could be if they have a tigroid fundus, for example. So every time they come in, you could bill a medical office visit. And we'll talk specific numbers here, but I do want to say that these are not the numbers that I charge. They're not the numbers that Stephanie charges. If you see a double asterisk next to it, it's just placeholders for easy math. One asterisk will show that the CMS national average for these services, which you can, look up online. So let's say that you're billing insurance and you bill, a contact lens management fee of $500 and a material fee for $500. So you're billing $1,000 total. Probably not going to get that, but that's what, you could bill to the patient. Next is follow-ups. You will get hopefully reimbursed your 92012, which is the $86. But topography and biometry, insurance is going to look at that and see the diagnosis code of whatever myopic sequelae that you code, and they're going to say, we're not going to cover that. So you want to have the patient sign something that they know that they're going to be responsible for these charges if their insurance does not cover it. So, you're billing a total of about $2,000. Probably not going to get that. And, you do have to do some extra patient counseling that if your insurance is not covering this, then this is what you'll be subject to. We'll be sending you a bill. So let's talk about self-pay. There's a few steps to calculate your global fee for the charges for myopia management. And the first thing that you want to do is calculate your chair cost. And the chair cost is the money that it takes to break even. So you're not making any profit at this point. And then you need to think about how many visits are we going to do for each type of myopia management option for year one and subsequent years, because remember, those are going to look pretty different, especially in the cases of the contact lenses. Step 3 is when you multiply the chair cost times those number of visits, that's the minimum cost to break even for that period of time. And then you look at that and then you decide, what do I want to make for these specialty services? Is that kind of along the lines of what you did for your self-pay practice, Stephanie?
Yeah, so there were so many doctors email me on a daily basis wanting to know how to calculate their fees. They don't know where to start. And I was in the same boat when I first started out into practice. I didn't know what to do. So I was just using the fee structure that was set up at my residency at UMSL. And I didn't realize that the universities tend to charge significantly less because it's a teaching institution. So I quickly learned that that was probably not the most appropriate. So I actually developed a little calculator on my own website for practitioners to use, because I get this question so often, and it's just a simple plug and chug, exactly kind of like what the steps you have written out, just kind of an easy way for people to kind of determine their own unique situation, kind of where to start.
Yeah, that's awesome. Because you'll see that if you had to do all of this manually on your own without the help of a calculator, it can get pretty complicated. So that's an awesome resource to have available. So let's get into the nitty gritty of these calculations. There are lots of different ways to calculate chair cost. I used the MBA method, which was a research program sponsored by Essilor, where they looked at 1,800 practices over a course of 7 years and just compiled a lot of benchmarks for those practices. And they calculated chair cost by the fixed cost divided by your revenue generating visits. And so the fixed costs are going to be the costs that are highlighted in red, the things that stay pretty consistent. And what's great about the MBA method is they compiled those benchmarks of where kind of the average practices are. So if you're a smaller practice, then maybe you can go towards the smaller percentages. If you're a larger practice, then maybe you go towards the larger, just depending on what your costs are, if you don't know exactly how much your general overhead is or equipment, et cetera. I did an example for us to kind of walk through where it's a $1 million practice. And so on the right there of the screenshot of an Excel sheet, I just did, 29% of 1 million, 20% of 1 million. And then our net income at the bottom is 30%, what you're left with, which is basically what you pay yourself and what gets reinvested back into the practice. So our fixed costs are going to be the gross minus the net minus the cost of goods, some of those variable costs. And in this example, that would be the 1 million minus our net, which is 300,000, minus our cost of goods, which is 290,000. And let's say that you see 3,300 visits per year. That would mean that $124 is what you would need to make every single time a patient comes in to break even. So when you look at an orthokeratology visit, say year one, how many visits are you going to have? Are you going to have a consultation in a revenue generating spot? Are you going to do INR on a different day? Are you going to do the same time as fitting? So think about, for whatever orthokeratology lens that you use, whether it's you're fitting in an office or empirically fitting, how many times you're going to see that patient. And then probably add in a couple of visits for some wiggle room. That way you have some a buffer in case a fit goes wrong. And so if you do 7 times that minimal chair cost, build in a couple of visits, let's say you're going to see them 9 times, you'll need to make about $1,100 for you to break even just on services. And then we need to think about our cost of lenses. So let's say that the lenses are $250. So for lenses and services, you need to make about $1,300 to break even. So that's going to be our minimum global fee price. Other things to consider is that, as we mentioned before, you're going to have more admin time, more patient management time. What does your global fee cover? Is it 90 days? Is it 6 months? Does it cover everything? If they come in with an abrasion because of, they used the plunger and there was no contact lens in their eye, does that cover it? And then think about that you might need some more follow-ups. And then think about, well, how much do I feel comfortable with making on this specialty service? And you could compare it to other specialty products in your office, and then just think about the fact that you've had to invest a lot of time in learning about myopia management. You've had to invest in more technology. you've gone to all of these CE events that weren't gracious enough to provide CE, like Woo University. And just think about, you've invested a lot of time and money to specialize in myopia management. So you can think about what your usual and customary is for your visits, and what your usual and customary is how much you typically mark up specialty lenses. And that could be the basis for your package. And then you would want to add on top of that also your contact lens management fee. Maybe you charge a little bit more than what a soft contact lens would be, because it takes more time to fit, it takes more skill to fit. So in this example, you would charge $2,300 for your package fee for orthokeratology. Then for multifocals, it's nice because you're going to have probably a little bit less of a visit. Maybe if you're, fitting MiSight, for example, you have your fitting set in office and you can just go grab it and you can take away some of these extra visits. And so your global fee might look a little bit different for multifocals, given that you're seeing them less often. I will say that our practice, we do the same price for multifocals and orthokeratology because we want the patient to pick based off of modality versus price. But if I see that they are a clear candidate for one or the other, then obviously that's what I'll recommend. And then atropine, you're going to be seeing them probably about 5 visits as well. And there's no contact lens, obviously, or products that you're having to charge them for. So it's just going to be based off of your usual and customary for the exam, and then plus biometry if you're going to charge for that. So that's a summary of how you could calculate the cost for your own practice. And I really recommend that, this does seem kind of like higher fees than what you would typically charge at your office for certain services, but you want to make sure that, you charge the appropriate amount per your office finances, because it's a quick race down to the bottom. If not, we've seen that with LASIK, for example, and you will not enjoy doing myopia management, which is such a cool opportunity for our profession if we're losing money for it. So Stephanie, can you tell us a little bit about, how kind of what you tell parents about why you do self-pay, like kind of explaining to them why you don't accept insurance, and kind of, your perspective of, you have these self-pay services and how somebody down the street may offer it significantly cheaper or accept insurance, why they should come to your office, and kind of explain the process to that patient.
Yeah, well, I think you have such a great point that it's really important to make sure that you're billing for your time and services appropriately. And, with all the examples that you gave, again, not saying what anybody should specifically charge, but just using numbers based off of just industry averages and just kind of round numbers, just doing the math. But something that I see very commonly with some of my coaching clients is that they're just charging way too little. And I think you're so right that it becomes a point where you're making less money than if you would just have seen a regular eye exam. And it's just a quick race to the bottom at that point. And so it is really important to charge appropriately, because not only is this a specialty service, you're taking time out of your day and your chair time, your staff's time, all of the knowledge that it takes to be able to offer this new service. So you really do need to make sure that you are charging appropriately for your unique practice. For me in particular, for cash pay, we tell patients that the reason we don't take insurance is because we don't want insurance dictating their care. We want to be able to make the decisions exactly how we feel for that unique patient. Our practice also only sees one patient at a time. We never have more than one person in the office. And if you go to any practice that takes insurance, that's never going to be the case, because you would just never be able to survive in that type of dynamic. And we offer different products and services that no one else in the entire state offers. So it just gives us kind of a niche in that particular field. And I always tell patients that if using your insurance is the most important thing and spending the least amount of money, I always give them a list of providers that accept their insurance and or can do it for significantly less than our practice. Because at the end of the day, I want patients being taken care of, and that is what's most important to me as an eye doctor. But of course, we just kind of explain our practice and what makes us different, and then just kind of let the patient make that decision. So yeah, that's kind of what we do in our practice.